Hey everybody! Today I wanted to do a quick DIY embroidery project that involves tulle and pressed flowers. So I figured it would be a little bit different and fun to do. So let's get started. So the first thing that you'll need is some tulle. I have 2 layers because I'm going to be using 2 separate layers to make this embroidery. And then you'll need your embroidery hoop, size of choice. I have a 5-inch hoop. I think that is a good size for the project. And you'll also need a needle. I recommend using either an embroidery needle, or you can also use a tapestry needle, which is a blunt needle. And blunt needles are easy to use with tulle because the sharp end won't snag the fabric. And then you'll need some pressed flowers. I pressed these a couple of weeks ago from my backyard, and I just took them out of the flower press and they turned out really nice. And I got some really small ones because I'm just going to be basically adding these in as a border around the embroidery we'll be making. So I don't have a stencil for this embroidery, but I am going to be doing a daisy, and I'll show you how I do it. I just grabbed some white and yellow embroidery floss for this project, and it'll be super simple to do, and you really shouldn't need a stencil for this project. The last thing you'll need is a hot glue gun, and you will also need a pair of scissors. I just have some little embroidery scissors to cut the thread with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen my embroidery hoop and take the inner and outer rings apart, because I'm going to be putting the tulle into this hoop. So I'm only going to be using 1 layer of tulle, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in the hoop. And you just want to be careful with the tulle because it is kind of fragile and stretchy, so really loosen your embroidery hoop so that it's not going to pull the tulle and obscure the fabric. You just want to be really gentle with tulle. I will also leave a link in the description of this video because I have an entire blog post about embroidering on tulle, because it can be a little bit fragile to work with. So there's just some good tips and tricks in that post if you'd like to check them out before you embroider. So I'm just going to go ahead and tighten this down and try to pull the tulle tight, but be as gentle as possible about it. And this is the part where I'm going to start putting the pressed flowers where I want them, and I'm gonna be securing them with just a little dab of hot glue. So I'm just gonna go ahead and see what I like once I lay this on here. I have a couple of different flowers, so I might do a couple alternating flowers, and I'm just going to kind of border my embroidery with these. And basically, once we do this, we'll be using the second layer to basically sandwich these together. That way they are protected and they won't get damaged at all from handling the embroidery. So I went ahead and rearranged this a little bit so that I liked the way they were spaced out. So now all I'm going to be doing is putting a little dab of hot glue on the back of the flowers. You just need the tiniest little amount. You just want them to be secure enough to where you can sandwich the tulle on top and they won't move. So you don't want to use too much hot glue because you don't want to melt the tulle or have the hot glue show through, but just give a little dab to each one and just kind of be really careful when you're handling them because they do break easily. Alright, so I've secured them with a dab of hot glue, and this part, it can be a little bit tricky, but you're going to loosen up your hoop and take the tulle and the flowers out of the hoop, because we're going to be sandwiching together the other layer of tulle. So you can just leave the tulle on top of the embroidery hoop and just carefully take off the outer ring, and then I'll be placing my other layer of tulle on top. And because you haven't secured the flowers down super well, the petals may move a little bit, so you want to make sure that all of them are laying nice and flat, and then you can place your outer ring back on. And the other thing you want to make sure of as well is that any hot glue gun strings are not sandwiched in between the tools, so just double check that before you put your second layer down. So now I will just tighten this up and we'll get to stitching. Alright, so I have everything ready to go, and I've threaded my yellow thread because I want to start from the center first and make the center of the daisy so I have a landmark to go off of to when I embroider all the petals, since I'm not going to be marking the fabric. I've tried using water-soluble marker before for tulle, but it just doesn't show up very well. So the only way you can really mark it is with some kind of permanent marker, and obviously that doesn't come off, so it would just not really work out for this embroidery. So I'm just going to kind of estimate the center here, and I'm just going to make some French knots in the center of this fabric for the center of the flower. And when I do this, I'm just going to leave a tail that's pretty long to basically tuck under all of the stitches when I'm done, because I don't want any knots to show through from the back of the tulle. So once you're happy with the size of the center of the flower, you can just tuck these tails into the back, and I just kind of weave them in and out a few times. And then you can just trim the tail of it, and that way it gets hidden behind your stitches. So next I'm going to be using my white thread, and I'm going to do the petals of the daisy, and I'm going to be doing a stitch that I would consider to be kind of a modification of a chain stitch. Normally with a chain stitch you will come up through the fabric and catch a loop with another stitch, but that will show through on the back. So with tulle it's nice because there's already holes in the fabric and it's see-through, so the way we'll do it will make it look like it's a chain stitch without catching it with that stitch. So again, I'm going to leave a tail, and I'm going to go down through the fabric, and then I'm going to come up in a hole right beside where I came down, and that will catch the loop, and because it's see-through it just makes a nice loop. And then you can go back down through the fabric, and I'm just going to work my way around the entire circle this way with these stitches. And don't worry if they're like not completely spaced out correctly. You can always go back and add more and kind of layer it in if you like that look. So I'm just gonna try and evenly space them out as much as possible, and then we can go back and fix anything if we feel like we need to add more. So now that I'm pretty much done with this length of thread, I'm just going to go ahead and again tuck it underneath the center of the flower here and just hide the stitches that way. So I've done one go round of the petals, and now I just want to layer in a couple more just to give it a little bit more of a denser look. So if you want, you can also kind of make the petals different lengths to kind of vary that, and I think it'll look kind of nice that way. So I'm just gonna go back through and add a few more in between all of these. So I added in a couple more stitches and I'm happy with the level of fullness that this flower has, so I think I'm happy with the way it turned out. So now I just wanted to show you guys how you can finish the back of your embroidery hoop. Obviously you don't want to put fabric on the back because you want it to be see-through, so I'm just going to be using some hot glue and I'm going to trim the border of this tulle fabric and basically just put the hot glue on the inside of the inner ring and discreetly put this on the back. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim the tulle around here, and I'm just gonna leave about, I would say like a ½ inch around the hoop. So now I'm just gonna put a little dab of glue in the inner ring here, and I'm just gonna use this pencil to press that down and just kind of twirl it around because you want it to lay pretty flat so it doesn't see through to the front. And you just kind of want to go little by little. I hope you guys enjoyed this class, and I hope that you got something out of it and made a beautiful pressed flower embroidery. If you guys like this style of tutorials, definitely check out the blog post about embroidering on tulle, and I also have a Skillshare class all about tulle embroidery. So if you'd like to take that, I have a referral link and you can get 2 weeks free of Skillshare. Thanks so much.